The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Donald Trump just doesn't get why, if he were president, he couldn't go around nuking people if he wants. We have very disturbing video of Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe, an MSNBC show, disclosing that he was told that Donald Trump 3 times during one session just asked, well, why can't we just use nuclear weapons? I'm going to play the clip for you. It is very disturbing, and even more disturbing at the end of the clip, you will actually hear a military expert say, you know, the system is designed for whoever is president to be able to launch nuclear weapons pretty damn quickly if they make the decision that they want to. Take a look at this.
Several months ago, a foreign policy expert on the international level went to advise Donald Trump, and 3 times he asked about the use of nuclear weapons. 3 times he asked, at one point, if we have them, why can't we use them?
Right.
That's one of the reasons why he just doesn't have foreign policy experts around.
Trump asked 3 times.
3 times in an hour briefing, why can't we use nuclear weapons? With that.
Be careful, America, and be careful, Republican leaders.
So General Hayden,
your party is blowing up.
I want to ask one more time, and it may be classified, but the steps. Donald Trump decides to use a nuclear weapon. What is the time frame between his decision and when the nuclear weapons are launched?
Joe, it's scenario dependent, but the system is designed for speed and decisiveness. It's not designed to debate the decision.
This is terrifying. I mean, this is legitimately terrifying in a way that we haven't seen since the collapse of the USSR and the end of the nuclear arms race. There's always a risk of some rogue state getting a bomb or figuring out how to make a bomb. It's sort of part of why the Iran deal was hugely important. But an American president who during a briefing in 1 hour is told 3 times, hey, here's a problem that you should be aware of. Oh, could we use a nuke there? Here's a second problem you should be aware of. Oh, and what if we just used a nuke to solve that problem? Here's a third problem you should be aware of. You know what sounds like the solution to that problem? Nuclear weapons. This is effing horrifying, Lewis. I don't know of any other way to put it.
I'm starting to wonder if Trump even understands how powerful these weapons are and what the effects of these weapons are. Maybe he just doesn't even understand that.
Well, he doesn't understand much. So it stands to reason he also doesn't even understand what nuclear weapons are. And I know you and I, Rachel, have talked about the reality that Hillary Clinton is not as left as I would want. She's not as left as you would want. But she's not confused about why we can't just start nuking people. There are relevant differences between the candidates, even on foreign policy.
Yeah, there's a big difference because she introduced the Dirty Bomb Act in 2005, trying to increase security of radiation sources as opposed to saying, okay, let's just take them all out, let's increase everything, and this is going to be a full-on nuclear war.
When you think about President Obama's comment that Donald Trump is unfit to be the president, when you think about Hillary Clinton's comment that he is temperamentally not qualified to be president, this is the stuff that we're talking about. And I know that I get frustrated, I assume you guys do too, when people say there effectively is no difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Well, the fact that Hillary is not Bernie doesn't mean that Hillary is Trump, and that has never been more clear than after hearing this.
Yeah, this should wake some people up. Okay, maybe things won't change on Wall Street. Maybe things won't change in the baking industry.
Yeah.
Maybe things won't even really change that much in terms of foreign policy.
Right.
But at least there won't be nuclear exchanges. Right?
This really sounds like an individual who is disturbed and clueless to a degree that we haven't seen for a while. And Lewis and I received some tweets, Rachel, people asking, do we think that a psych eval should sort of be standard for anyone who is a major party nominee? And this is the type of thing that makes me say, yes, it should be standard.
I definitely think there should be. And I also think that in terms of kind of everything he's saying about nuclear war and nuclear weapons is that, okay, well, now I'm just going to further align myself with Putin as well, and just kind of showing this showing this type of arrogant belligerence.
Yeah.
And what do we make of that?
That is fascinating. We've been talking about this possible link between Trump and Russia and Putin. What is more belligerent and arrogant and Putin-like than saying problems? Nukes. Those are the solutions. If ever Trump has sounded more like Putin, it is this type of thing. It actually is probably an insult to Putin. This probably goes beyond Putin to some degree.
Well, if Trump were to become president, what would be the difference between him and Putin? I mean, Putin rides on horses, shirtless, and does judo.
Trump rides in his chopper.
Yeah, but they're both rich white guys who seem to be incredibly arrogant and full of themselves.
You remember Katrina Pierson? This is the Trump spokeswoman who said incorrectly that Donald Trump's Muslim ban never singled out Muslims, defended the call for a pure breed president, defended the Muslim ban by saying, so what, they're Muslim, and also appeared on CNN wearing a bullet necklace. She went on CNN yesterday to talk about this horrible PR nightmare over Donald Trump slamming the Gold Star parents of the deceased U.S. Army Captain Humayun Khan. And she went with the strategy of blame Obama no matter what. This was an interview yesterday with Wolf Blitzer. I was Lewis at the gym on the elliptical, and I almost flew off the elliptical when I saw this because it was so crazy. Blame Obama for a military death in 2004. Do some math. You might remember Trump became president whoa, big Freudian slip. Obama became president in January of 2009. Take a look at this.
Fought on the battle, prevented some of his fellow soldiers from dying by going into that suicide, that car bombing, if you will. I'm not going to get into a discussion of back and forth. I praise this family. I praise the son and move on. You didn't have to go back and forth and respond to all of the statements made by the father.
But surely you can understand the confusion considering how Donald Trump never voted for the Iraq war. Hillary Clinton did. And then she didn't support the troops to have what they need. It was under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton that changed the rules of engagements that probably cost his life. So I don't understand why it's so hard to understand why Donald Trump was confused about why he was being held responsible for something he had nothing to do with while Hillary Clinton had everything to do with.
Wait. President Obama, who became president in 2009, and Hillary Clinton, who was his Secretary of State after that same date, are responsible for changing the rules of engagement such that an individual member of the military died in 2004? What was President Obama doing in 2004? It was certainly not changing the rules of engagement. This is what we call a straw man. The Khans aren't holding Donald Trump responsible for their son's death. They're holding Donald Trump responsible for his bigoted statements, his blatantly unconstitutional proposals, his inconsiderate response to their statements as grieving parents. And somehow Katrina Pierson, Lewis, says Obama and Clinton are to blame for the death of this individual 5 years before the president became the president.
Yeah, it makes no sense, but I don't even understand the point of bashing Obama at this point.
No.
Bash Hillary. That seems to be a more effective campaign strategy.
Yeah, that was confusing to me, the bash Obama. What do you gain from bashing Obama now?
Well, first of all, Republicans have a history of kind of blaming Democrats for things that had absolutely nothing to do with them. And Obama was blamed for ISIS when Bush kind of clearly planted that seed when he voted and instituted the Iraq War.
Yeah, that's not a new thing. And I'm actually starting to think that even though Republicans are the anti-science party, they must believe in time travel because that's the only way half of these accusations make sense.
Right, or they're really bad at math.
Well, absolutely they're bad at math. There's no if there, Lewis. I mean, naive Rachel thinks it's possible Republicans might be bad at math.
They're bad at math, but they're somehow masters at manipulating statistics.
Yeah.
Right.
Donald Trump went on a bizarre rant against renewable energy this week at a rally in Pennsylvania. He said that solar power doesn't work and that wind turbines kill all the birds. Here's Donald Trump, PhD scientist, apparently, climatologist Trump. Take a look.
She wants to put the miners out of business, the mines out of business. She wants to put natural gas out of business. She wants to put, it's going to be a disaster. First of all, the alternative is so expensive. It's so expensive. And honestly, it's not working so good. I know a lot about solar. I love solar. But the payback is what, 18 years? Oh, great. Let me do it 18 years. The wind kills all your birds. All your birds killed. You know, the environmentalists never talk about that.
No, they don't talk about it because it's not true. He has to have a team of comedy writers secretly working for them. There is no way that this is a serious campaign, is there?
There was a writer who decided to rickroll the RNC
right.
when his wife spoke, and that was trolling. So maybe this is trolling.
I thought we would be thorough here, Rachel, and actually go through this. Solar power has historically been expensive, but the costs have fallen drastically, down 70% in the last 7 years. It continues to fall. That reduces the payback period, which Donald Trump is talking about there. And as far as wind turbines killing birds, I don't know anybody who ignores that. I mean, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does estimate that there are several 100,000 birds per year killed by wind turbines. This is way less than the number of birds killed in so many other ways that seem far more avoidable. And we actually have some of the numbers. I'll show them to you just to be thorough. Wind turbines kill an estimated 140,000 to 328,000 birds per year. Birds flying into buildings kills between 100 million and 1 billion birds per year. Hey, those buildings, Lewis, those are bad. We've got to get rid of those and keep the birds alive. Killed by cats. I'm sure Lewis will like this. He's a cat guy. 1.4 billion to 3.7 billion birds are killed per year by cats. 340 million birds are killed per year by cars and trucks. And fossil fuel plants kill 10 times as many birds as do wind turbines. So if the argument is any source of energy that kills birds should be eliminated, fossil fuel plants should be way higher on the list, Rachel, than should wind turbines.
Definitely. I think there's just a little bit of misunderstanding here with the climate and the environment and energy for Trump, because he said, okay, let's cancel the Paris Climate Agreement. While we're at it, I'm going to use my oil buying clout in the Gulf to further advance my foreign relations.
Yeah, make deals, as he likes to say.
Exactly. But at the same time, we're going to have complete energy independence, even though I'm doing this. And at the same time, the Chinese created all of this, and it's a hoax because they want to alienate U.S. manufacturing.
Oh, yeah, we don't even need any of this alternative energy anyway, in spite of it killing, quote, all the birds, because it's all fake and made up by China.
Right. And we can't forget that Obama killed coal, even though it was shale gas.
Yeah, oh, well, but there's way too much nuance there for Trump. He really doesn't get it, does he?
Well, he is running as a Republican. And when you do that, you have to be pro-gas, you have to be pro-oil, you have to be pro-coal, and you have to say, at least hint at the fact that global warming might be a giant conspiracy.
And you don't have to, I mean, as progressives, we can actually get into the details, and it is an interesting topic to study, the impact of wind turbines on birds. And we know that, for example, offshore wind farms and wind turbines are more likely to kill the larger migratory birds that have far longer lifetimes, they have lower reproduction rates. Think about, an eagle compared to a sparrow, or what I've been called in the past, a titmouse. That's a relevant conversation, right, Lewis? Well, different placement of wind turbines kills different types of birds. But we know this, and this is why we have environmental impact assessments, and this is just the dumbest argument. And I would go back to the most dangerous human-made entity to birds seems to be buildings, and I don't hear anybody saying we should get rid of buildings, Lewis, to save the birds.
I've been saying we should get rid of buildings for a long time.
Well, yeah, other than you, I mean.
Yeah. Well, not to save the birds. It's just like, let's put them underground buildings.
So what initiative did Donald Trump propose at this rally related to energy? Here's what he came up with. We're going to reduce the frequency of coal mine inspections, saying, quote, I have friends that own the mines. I mean, they can't live because the mines are inspected so frequently. Is anybody else panicking that this guy is one step from being the most powerful person on the planet? Humans have one planet, to the knowledge that I have at this point, and this is the guy who might be in charge of the most powerful person on that planet in 4 months.
Well, I honestly think you're not giving him enough credit, because he did say,
yeah, credit.
quote, I know a lot about solar. And so.
That's true.
He knows a lot about coal too, apparently.
He did preface his entire thing by saying, "I know a lot about solar." At least he knows a lot about solar.
And he had a wonderful hand gesture when he was saying they kill the birds.
Yeah,
so.
they kill the birds, and then we're going to stop that, and it's going to be tremendous. Let's take a break. I'm on Twitter at @dpacman.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new member of the day is Robert Rutherford. Robert, thank you so much for being a supporter of the show. The all-new members portal launches this weekend. Sign up at davidpakman.com/membership. You'll also get instant access to the bonus show when you sign up. Let's get to Hatriot Mail this week. Very, very special week for it.
Brace yourselves for the only information that can successfully penetrate a tinfoil hat. Hatriot Mail. Written by patriots who hate David Pakman. Because America. And because freedom.
So we've talked about former military sniper Chris Kyle a few times recently, and of course pointed out that much of what he claimed about his own background, including medals of valor, was just not true, completely false and made up. We also talked about the actor who played him in the movie, Bradley Cooper, was at the DNC, not a Republican, as many right-wingers were hoping. And here is one very, very angry Hatriot who wrote me about this.
You spineless piece of shit pussy liberals have no right to criticize anyone in the military. Say what you want about Chris Kyle, but he was a Navy SEAL, survived multiple combat tours overseas, and saved dozens of lives. And what the fuck were you doing? Playing Xbox, jacking off to hentai, and complaining about the lack of organic fair trade coffee beans at Starbucks? You cowardly little limp dick cunts couldn't get laid if you paid a man-hating dyke to f you in the ass with a strap-on. I hope some female veteran overhears you talking shit about people in the military and bitch slaps you in front of your genderqueer life partner.
Yeah. One day we will be having my genderqueer life partner on the show. It's going to be a very short episode. First of all, I don't go to Starbucks, so I could not care less whether they have organic coffee beans there or fair trade coffee beans there. I do not go to Starbucks. You know that, Lewis. Rachel knows that. Everybody knows that. I hate to break it to this Hatriot. It's the left that supports the military in this country, not the right. The right, by and large, uses the military as a tool for getting us engaged in pointless and harebrained military conflicts, then votes not to actually supply the troops with what they need to be well protected, then votes not to fund the aftercare that the troops need when they come back stateside. It's the left that supports the troops, and I would gladly speak to any member of the military about that.
Well, you have. Perhaps
that's true.
People should go back and look at some of those interviews.
Yeah. On many issues, Democrats and Republicans very similar. On this issue, Democrats and Republicans very, very different. There is a growing disaster going on in the Republican Party. Donald Trump is refusing to endorse Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, the most powerful currently elected Republican in Congress, as well as John McCain, as well as several other Republicans. We have now a bunch of different quotes which show that the Republican Party is essentially ripping itself apart from the inside. Many prominent Republicans, as I've told you, not supporting Trump, and Trump also not supporting many of them. The Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, is in a primary fight. This is the leader of the Republican Party in Congress, and Donald Trump won't endorse him. Here is what Donald Trump had to say about him. I like Paul, but these are horrible times for our country. We need very strong leadership. We need very, very strong leadership. And I'm just not quite there yet. I'm not quite there yet. The Republican nominee is not supporting the top Republican, and not surprising to some, well-respected war hero and longtime Arizona Senator John McCain is also not being endorsed by Donald Trump. And I say not surprising because McCain has been very critical of Trump. He criticized Trump for his insults against the Khan family, the Gold Star parents. He had this embarrassing statement that John McCain isn't a war hero because he was held as a prisoner of war at one point. And he said that he has, quote, never been there with John McCain. because I've always felt that he should have done a much better job for the vets. Trump also criticizing New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte, who is also in a re-election battle. And she criticized Trump over his comments about the Khan family. She is supporting Trump's candidacy, but is staying pretty distant from him. This is a unique situation, Lewis, that we have on our hands here. The Republican Party, it's almost like they are self-cannibalizing from the inside.
You would have thought that it would have been worth it just to throw a wrench in things at the convention, pull some type of, I don't know what you would call it, and make sure that Donald Trump was not the nominee. It seems like the damage that would have caused would have been
smaller.
Yes, far less than what is happening now.
Just today, I was reading about some Republicans starting to think about, can we get out of this? Can we get Trump to leave? Senator Ayotte's response on Twitter to Donald Trump's non-endorsement of her: I call it like I see it, and I'm always going to stand up for our military families and what's best for the people of New Hampshire. This is not a unified party, Rachel. I turn on CNN, I see Republican advisors, former Ted Cruz advisor, former Marco Rubio advisor, Bush administration officials. They're all negative about Trump. How can you become the president when you don't even have the support of your party?
I don't really know, but what's more confusing to me is kind of John McCain's role in all of this, because I don't really understand. So he's being criticized and he's criticizing him back, but so where's his vote lying? Because is he trying to not alienate the Arizona Republicans?
Yeah. They're playing
understand.
coy. A lot of Republicans are what you're noticing is not, you haven't missed anything, I guess is the point. They're playing coy, Lewis, which is they say, Trump is not the person that we should be voting for. I don't support Trump. The obvious question is, well, are you voting for Hillary? If you say you're voting for Hillary, you alienate the votes in your home state that you need. And McCain knows that. Ayotte knows that. All of these individuals clearly know that. So they're stuck in what's effectively an impossible position.
It's unfortunate that it comes to that. And, maybe if John McCain weren't running, he might have something different to say. But that's just politics. You have to play the game.
The down ballot impact, I think, is what is making a lot of these individuals who, if they were not running, they probably would be much more honest and forthright that they are just going to vote for someone else and they would name who that is. But it's risky to do that when you're running for re-election. I think it's mostly that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Republican Congressman Richard Hanna becomes the first in Congress to officially defect, not away from Trump, but to Hillary Clinton. He has announced he will be voting for Hillary Clinton this November. This is a third-term moderate Republican from upstate New York. He made the announcement in an interview published in a Syracuse newspaper. He always said he would never back Trump. This goes all the way back to March of this year. He now has gone further, and he says, you know what, with these attacks that Donald Trump has made on the family of the fallen Muslim soldier Humayun Khan, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. He wrote this op-ed called "We Should All Be Done with Donald Trump." And he said that the reasons were ample and personal. He finds Trump offensive. He finds him to be a narcissist. Hard to disagree with anything that Mr. Hanna wrote, isn't it?
It's a great decision, but like we just talked about, certainly not one that Republicans that are running for re-election are going to make, regardless of how they feel. But symbolically still important.
Well, both Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, as we've mentioned, have released these individual statements criticizing specific things Donald Trump has said, most recently, most notably, the attacks on the Khan family. But they haven't actually said we're withdrawing support. Never mind, we are voting for Hillary Clinton. This is really, really a problem. And as you know, Rachel, you've been researching some of the names. George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush are abstaining from supporting Trump. Barbara Bush and Mitt Romney will not be supporting Trump, according to their latest comments. Jeb Bush is on that list. I've spoken about Richard Armitage, a very well-respected former Navy officer and Deputy Secretary of State under George W. Bush, Deputy Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan, not supporting Donald Trump. Condi Rice is abstaining. This is a unique circumstance we have here. This is not the normal thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because in many elections, there's going to be Republicans who vote for Democrats and Democrats who vote for Republicans.
Voters.
Yes, voters. That's what I meant, voters. But if you look at the polls, the exit polls in 2008, 9% of people said they were Republicans, voted for Obama. And in 2004, for John Kerry, that statistic was about 6%. So it's going to be really interesting to look at the exit polls in this election.
That's interesting. I wonder, we talk about the voting against someone versus voting for. 2004, a lot of the John Kerry candidacy was based on voting against George W. Bush. And 6% of Republicans, as Rachel said, voted for John Kerry. And we know, generally speaking, that that was a failed anti-campaign against George W. Bush. 2008, on the other hand, was not that type of thing. John McCain was not that directly linked with the George W. Bush sort of doctrine. And he had a higher percentage of voters from his own party support Barack Obama. This time around, we have a very disliked Republican candidate, but also a pretty disliked Democratic candidate as well. And I am genuinely curious, what will those numbers be? Will it be 6% of Republicans who ultimately vote Hillary? Will it be 10, 11, 12%? The other difference, guys, though, is Hillary Clinton is also a far more moderate Democrat than we've seen in a long time. That may attract Republicans regardless of the Republican nominee.
It will attract the ones who don't care about issues like Benghazi and emails, things of that sort. If they are concerned with actual Republican values and what matters, economic stuff, they should have no problem voting for Hillary Clinton.
You would think, yeah. After the break, I will interview Mathew Schmid. What is going on with the bees, and what can we do, and why does it matter?
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It's great to be joined today by Mathew Schmid, a partner in Tree Media Group. He has been following what is happening with bees in the United States and around the world for some time. Mathew, for people who have not learned about why bees are even so important to humans on the planet, let's sort of start there.
Well, if you know, I come in now and say, you know, it's all about food. For people who, you know, who don't want to make this a sort of a stewardship issue, or it's if we don't have bees, we basically don't have, or if we don't have pollinators, we don't have food. And the bees are the largest contributor to the pollination process.
And for people who might not know how many foods either directly or indirectly rely on pollination, including from bees, give us some examples. I mean, for people who think, okay, yeah, well, maybe almonds, for example, or something like that. I mean, talk to us about really how important this is.
Oh, it's critical. I mean, the almond industry heavily depends on honeybees being basically shipped to these giant almond orchards in California, for instance, at a very specific time when they bloom. And if the matching of the blooming and the honeybees is not at the right time, at the right sort of velocity almost between those two, if it's sort of decoupled, as they say, then it's devastating for the almond farmers, and ultimately devastating for almonds, meaning there are not going to be any almonds, or very little and very expensive.
Talk to us a little bit about what factors are endangering bees right now. What has changed? Why is there this crisis?
Yeah, and I want to just open up a little bit to listeners and say, you know, it is bees, and bees are the you sort of, you know, it's the superhero of pollinators. But there's butterflies, there are beetles, bats, hummingbirds, moths, all these. Even we have some lemurs in foreign countries, and we have. So all these beings, all these animals are responsible for pollinating the vegetation, or the crops that eventually bring us food. And so it is to answer your question, it is, I don't know how to say how critical it is we wouldn't have any food if we wouldn't have bees.
Right. And so now, as far as the problems, tell us what's going on with bees.
Right. So the problems, right. That was your question. So the problems is there is there is, everybody knows about the collapse, the colony, colony collapse disorder. People are still riddling what this is. People are slowly understanding it. It's anything from pathogens, illnesses that they pick up to weak. They're just weak, and some of them. And the association, for instance, for the bee, the Honeybee Association of North America, also the gentleman told me it's exhaustions of the bees. They're being transported everywhere now, all over the country. It's become a business. And they're exhausted. And so they collapse. The colony collapsed because I think the bee colony is a very, it's a very not fully understood yet organization that belongs together. And if anything goes wrong within its colony, the weaknesses show up. But if we look at the broader picture, we have habitat loss, habitat destruction. We have, specifically to bees, we have imported, I was told, a lot of imports from foreign countries, especially Asia, and they bring diseases with them. But I want to be careful with that because I'm not an expert in that field. We also have, we have chemicals. I mean, we have anything from herbicides to fungicides to pesticides that I personally am convinced is distressing the bee to a point that they lose orientation, productivity. So there's a multiple factor. There's also climate change for the native bee. So also to be understood is that the honeybee is a bee that was imported by the Europeans when they came to America. But America itself, United States, or the American continent, has 4,000 native bees. Some of them, or most of them, are actually stingless. And they contribute also a great deal to pollination.
Can you talk, I was going to say, can you talk a little bit specifically about the impact of farming on bees and sort of the way farming is done today and the effect that that's having?
Well, I mean, the problem that we're having today is that we live in a monoculture thinking society. We think, here's an almond orchard, and we need the almond flowers to be pollinated. But what the problem is that a bee, a complex being like the bee in a beehive, and these animals, these pollinating animals, they need, just like we as human beings, they need a variety, an ecosystem that has a variety of places to go at certain times, medicinal plants that they need. We don't understand what they need and how they need things. If we just send them to the monoculture, then there's nothing. The diversity is gone. And with the diversity, with the falling diversity, the bee is just doesn't get its, how can I say, it doesn't get its full life. It's like it doesn't get we don't meet its needs as an animal.
Well, along those lines, I mean, I'm in hearing you talk about this, what I'm thinking of is the sort of move, the popularization to some degree of the sort of backyard beekeeping and urban beekeeping, etc. Is that something that, in your estimation, is having a positive impact? Is that sort of too little, too late, so to speak?
I think it's definitely not too little and it's not too late. I mean, I set up this shot, so you see that right behind me there's a lot of bees on that thistle that's about to bloom and then throw off its seeds. So backyard beekeeping is I think in some ways the answer, because it also includes the urban areas and the suburban areas, and it takes the diversity that's still everywhere actually, and gives the bee a chance to really create a strong hive and create a strong being, and provide, of course, what everybody loves is the honey. So that's there's a lot of solutions in that area, and I think that's what we have to do. In the farm society has to understand, that community has to understand that they have to do the same thing. They have to start creating diversity on their farmland. They have to put wildflowers back in. They have to, take some of the monocultured land, that perfectly designed land that they have, and they have to create pockets where what they call corridors, where bees and other pollinators can just live along and just rest and rejuvenate and whatever they need, which we still don't understand what they need to do. We're all, scientists are looking to find out what they actually need to be healthy. So urban beekeeping is a great way to do it, and we just have to take away that problem that people associate with bees is the stinging and the fear around, the sting of the bee.
Last thing I want to touch on, if we can, is the invasive species. This is something I've read about to some degree, and there are actually invasive species that are very damaging to bee populations. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what is causing that?
Well, I think I can I think in some ways it's it can be very quickly made into a political issue. I think invasive species, we have that with plants too. So, I live in California, and, we have all these plants from all over the world. We have all these trees, incredible people bring their trees. So invasive species or not native species is basically, it has to do with what we call a pollinator partnership. So the pollinators have a partnership with plants. And those plants are, of course, native, right? Because the bee comes from this place. So it looks for its plant. So if we take out that plant and plant in an invasive species, not to use the word invasive, just a foreign plant, then the process of decoupling is already happening, and we're distressing that pollinator, that particular pollinator. So when it comes to the bigger picture, is invasive species, of course, the real ones, the ones that are officially now called invasive, are taking over states, I've heard. Nothing comes to mind right now, but somebody just told me about a plant that literally took over a state and is horribly destructive to pollinators. And so we have to really rein in. We have to understand that they have to be taken out. And the big thing, and President Obama has understood this, and he signed sort of a pollinator executive order. We need to really put in the native plants. And native doesn't mean California is different than Michigan, the second biggest agricultural state in the U.S. So we have to put these native plants back in, and that gives the chance again for the coupling, for the matching of these partnerships between bees and the plants.
We've been speaking with Mathew Schmid. He is a partner in Tree Media Group, a hugely, hugely important issue that really everybody should be aware of. Mathew, thank you so much for talking to us about this.
Thank you for having me on your show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
I don't know if this was a deliberate attempt to try to hurt Donald Trump by a disgruntled former employee or what it was, but fired Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, who is now a CNN contributor, went on CNN and revived Obama birther conspiracy theories. Absolute nonsense. You'll remember Lewandowski is still reportedly being paid by the Trump campaign and being paid by CNN and contractually barred from saying anything negative about Donald Trump. He suggested that the reason President Obama never released his transcripts from Harvard was to hide the fact that he was not born in the United States. I know this may sound shocking to you because I thought we were past this and I thought Obama wasn't running for president anymore. But apparently to Corey Lewandowski, this still matters. Take a look.
In office. He is the one who was the spokesperson for the birther movement and was calling for transcripts for and saying that the president was an affirmative action admittee of Harvard.
So did he ever release his transcripts?
By the way, tell me about those tax returns, Corey, while you're at it.
You raised the issue. I'm just asking. You raised the issue. Did he ever release his transcripts or his admission to Harvard University? You raised the issue, so just yes or no.
Corey, in this moment, I'm going to Beyonce you. Boy, bye. You so out of line right now. Tell your candidate to release his
don't raise the issue if you don't want to address it. That's what happened.
2 words. Tax returns.
Harvard University transcripts. You raised the issue. Did he ever release?
Okay, let me ask you something.
Law review editor, the first black one.
What is the importance of Barack Obama's Harvard transcript?
Right.
Thanks.
It's not.
Corey, that's for you.
Corey.
She brought the issue up.
I'm asking you, how is it germane to the election in the American people?
Look, the only reason it's germane is because she brought the issue up and said Donald Trump raised the issue of his Harvard transcripts, and I just simply said, have those ever been released? Yeah. And the question was, did he get in as a U.S. citizen, or was he brought into Harvard University as a citizen who wasn't from this country?
By the way, George W. Bush did not release his
Don.
But go ahead.
Right, that's fine. He doesn't have to release his transcript.
So why does Barack Obama have to release his?
Is this really what we're down to? First of all, how does it even follow that college transcripts would be the one way to expose that someone was born in another country and isn't eligible to be president? That's ridiculous. I almost called PETA to report that they were beating dead horses live on the air on CNN, Lewis, when this came up.
Good one. This is not meant to harm Trump or the campaign or anything like that. This is probably just a strategy that Lewandowski thinks will work. It's amazing that he's had so much more airtime after getting fired than he did while he was Trump's campaign manager, and this is deliberate. He probably thought, it's good for the campaign if you fire me, and I can do more good when I'm not at part of your campaign. It seems to be working.
So CNN has a birther on their payroll. Rachel, if you agree with Lewis that this was not a way for a disgruntled person to harm Trump by reminding the audience that Trump was one of the first birthers, then what was the point of this? Does this birther stuff have cachet at this point?
Well, it's either some sort of racially tinged desperation, or it is going back to the fact that Trump was a birther. But anytime someone brings that up to Trump, he says, oh, well, Hillary started the birther movement. And what about McCain? He was a birther as well. So where does that kind of leave him now?
Imagine that all of a sudden we figured out, you know what? We were wrong all along. President Obama was born in another country. He perpetrated a scam over the 46 years leading up to becoming president of the United States. He never should have been president. How on earth does that affect Clinton versus Trump? Because Clinton was in the Obama administration. Now she's not qualified or something?
That means that she is a fraud too. By tacitly, it means that she's even more crooked.
She should have known better, Rachel, than to accept a position under an illegitimate president. It was her responsibility. And by the way, she probably deleted 20,000 emails about where Obama was really born.
Right. Well, it was most important when we asked Trump and he said, I don't know where he was born.
Trump just doesn't know. I love that. Listen, I don't know where he was born. Well, hold on. Where does he say he was born? Okay. And do you have any specific reason to think he was born somewhere else? Hey, I don't know. He could have been born anywhere for all I know.
It doesn't even matter. Even if you are born in another country to American parents or an American mother, you are American.
Well, then we get back into, I'm having flashbacks, guys, to the entire, what is the definition of naturalized or natural born rather? Okay, so I don't know. If Corey Lewandowski thinks this is going to help his old boss win, then have at it. I truly don't see it. And going back to just old arguments, which Donald Trump was heavily involved in. Let's not forget that. Hey, here's something really funny, Lewis. Last Friday, I received a tweet, and I want to put that tweet up for people who are watching with us, from Gael C., saying, a caller on Thom Hartmann today said you're so mad at the DNC that you might vote for Trump. No. Why are you so misunderstood? And I immediately had to track this down. So I emailed Shane and Danielle over at Tom's show. And I said, listen, I got a tweet saying somebody called up, invoked my name, not in vain necessarily, but it was invoked, no doubt, claiming that I was on the border of voting for Donald Trump. Can you find this for me? They weren't able to find it. I said, okay, it's done. We're not going to find the clip. But Monday morning, I had an email from Danielle saying Shane found the clip. It is absolutely hilarious. A guy called James calls in. It's about a 4.5 minute long phone call. I'm not going to play the whole thing for you. The entire call is mostly about medical theft, undocumented immigration, etc. I'll just play the first few seconds to give you a sense of the beginning of the call, okay?
Hey, Tom, you might actually have the first conniption on live TV because I'm a burner that's now going to vote for Trump.
Well, I wish you well with that.
It's just been.
You gonna have fun in your jail cell next year?
That's pretty bad to say because I work in the medical field and I testified at the Georgia Congress and they cut TRICARE to shore up what I call illegal care, and I get handed fake IDs with no.
So it goes on and on like this for 4 minutes, different topics. This guy James is going on and on. Longer call than you would normally hear on Tom's show. It starts to get to the end of the call, and the guy mentions, hey, the other day David Pakman almost exploded and yelled out that he's going to support Donald Trump. And the best part is Tom's reaction. You'll hear the confusion in Tom's voice, but if you're also watching with us, you'll see this look on Tom's face of total and utter confusion where he has no clue what this guy is talking about. And he did something that he's actually very good at, which is sort of casually hanging up on the caller while he's saying, I have no clue what you're talking about. Let's take a look, listen, watch. It's amazing.
I agree. I do agree with you, Tom. But
so then vote Democratic,
honestly,
James.
Honestly, I thought the other night, I thought David Pakman at one point was going to explode and just yell out he was going to support Trump. Some of
yeah, well, okay, James, we're now on to other topics. Thanks for the call. David's a good guy, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
What do you think of that, Lewis? I mean, it's just amazing, right? What on earth was that guy talking about?
I'm trying to remember what that might have been.
I mean, it was, I think, related to my rant about how ridiculous and dishonest what the DNC did was.
Yeah. And there's no denying that. But at no point did you ever say, I'm even considering voting for Trump.
I think I actually said the opposite, Rachel, which is let's not get confused that because of what the DNC did, Donald Trump would be better for the country. I think I actually went out of my way to make it clear that we still should not be voting for Donald Trump.
Right, but he could be one of the many who thinks that aesthetically you look like a conservative, even though Trump isn't a real conservative, but maybe he's just kind of going on that bandwagon.
Yeah, I've actually been getting a bunch of emails saying that my hair is getting so long that I'm now starting to look like I would be some kind of hippie or something like that. And so maybe at the time my hair was shorter and I looked like maybe I was a buttoned up conservative. I don't know.
Did you have a bow tie on too?
That day, no, I don't own any bow ties, actually. Thank you for mentioning that. All right, I've got a voicemail to play for you. The number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Now, I'm just going to spoil this for you in a way. This is Troy York, okay? Troy York is a guy who is often very angry with the show. He sometimes calls in as Troy York, but sometimes he calls in under other names. Once he was a transgender woman named Louise. That was a persona that he said he was calling in as. Another time it was, I don't know what other name. This time, he's apparently calling in with the persona of a Hispanic man, but he's not disguising his voice at all, and he wants to criticize the Eggman. Take a listen to this.
Yes, David, this is Ramon Ramos. I enjoyed your program about the walkable communities. I was wondering if you can do a study why elite walkable communities have less gas stations.
Fewer.
Than the suburbia and rural areas. I have noticed that the gas station quickie marts have definitely exploded in recent years in suburbia and the rural areas, and that they hardly exist like in any nice downtown. They have pretty much displaced the gas station. And I also want to make a comment about the Eggman. The Eggman is a total idiot if he thinks money has nothing to do with good parenting. I like to see how all these wealthy parents, how good they would be. You take the money away and all these extracurricular activities that they got their youngsters off and babysitted by other coaches. And
yeah, okay, that's good. So listen, I agree with Troy. I'm sorry. Ramon Ramos about this Eggman thing. I think Eggman is right that parenting is really important. This is from yesterday's voicemail, which you missed. Parenting is really important, but also having school districts that have money is also important. I love how Ramon Ramos, whenever he calls in, everything's a big conspiracy. David, can you explain why coincidentally urban areas seem to have fewer, he used the word less, fewer and fewer gas stations, while rural and suburban areas have more and more gas stations? It's no conspiracy. Fewer people need cars in cities, therefore the need for gas stations goes down. You need a car in suburbia and in rural areas, so you need more gas stations. It's amazing how everything is a conspiracy, Rachel, to some people.
Right. I also feel like in suburbia, if things are more spread out,
yeah,
there's just going to be more, whereas opposed to everything is more dense, so you'll need less of them.
Of course. Everything a conspiracy, Lewis, Ramon Ramos.
I'm just shocked and appalled that anyone would criticize the Eggman.
I know, yeah.
It's that's bad.
It doesn't bode well for Ramon. On the bonus show today, cops have arrested a man for crystal meth. Turns out it was donut icing. Lewis is all over that story. He is trying to figure out how he can disguise meth as just donuts. And it's working quite well, I must say. Boston police have unveiled a new ice cream truck. And New York has banned sex offenders from Pokemon Go. No Squirtles for them. That is for damn sure, ladies and gentlemen. All of those stories and more on the bonus show today. Sign up at davidpakman.com/membership.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.